Alright, hello good people, wherever you are on the planet, welcome to my channel. Today on my movie channel, I just now came from viewing the Flash movie. I'm not going to try to give any spoilers, but you all probably know how to end. You know what Barry did. He messed with time. If you was watching the Flash TV show, you have an idea how he went back in time. But the thing that get me, since I haven't traveled back in time, I don't know how it works. Since nobody really did it, I don't know how it works. But I do know, isn't time sort of stringent? So I'm just thinking, when Barry changed the timeline, shouldn't it have just affected him? But it didn't. When he went back in time, it did not just affect his timeline, it affected countless others. And he only changed one moment of time. I don't know exactly how that timeline worked, but in that timeline, was Abraham Lincoln assassinated? Because I mean, the way he changed it, it seemed like that stuff could have happened. It seemed like Abraham Lincoln didn't get assassinated. The President Clinton, did he go through that scandal thing? In that timeline, the way how he messed up so much time, it probably didn't happen. Did President Reagan get shot? Did the Pope get shot back in that timeline? Because, yes, I do know, it seemed like the slightest change that he made had a ripple effect. Not just on his, it was affecting like movies and stuff. When he was talking about certain actors in a movie, he said, no, it's not that person, it's another person. So, the time shift, I'm just thinking as a normal person, and a person do got a little bit of scientific knowledge, why did that one shift, well, it could have been a butterfly effect, but it seemed like that one shift that he did affected, it had like a ripple effect through time. It affected many things, not just him. I'm just saying from a common sense point of view, if he did that to one person, shouldn't that be the only timeline affected? Shouldn't it just be his timeline? I mean, I'm just thinking, it's not time work somewhat? Like we make one change in this life, it only affect me. It don't affect my neighbors down the street or people who I never met. His time shift was affecting people who he didn't have no dealing with. I said I'm not going to give no spoilers, but I'm not going to tell you who was affected. But I did give you one little spoiler, but that was the easy one. Like actors who he know in our time was not actors in that time. It seemed like, now I could understand if his family was if he was a billionaire and he changed something to his $1 billion company, that could cause massive effect. But he just was a normal person. His family just was a normal, typical American family, but one shift to his family throughout the whole time thing. Throughout. Now, that was part one. Part two, but I do understand it. Now, this is spoiler to it, but it's really not a spoiler because you all know how movies go. Certain people going to die. We love them. They show up. We're going to die. It was I ain't going to say who it was, but it was a certain person in that movie who got killed. Well, I guess I'm giving it a spoiler because I got to go more in detail with this person. She was killed at the end. And no matter what he did in time, some things were inevitable. That was always called a nexus event. No matter how much he went back in time, he could not save that person. But I had my reasons why. It was a Kryptonian, so I got to say a Kryptonian. But I understand why that particular Kryptonian lost everything. I understand why. Because in this movie, this particular Kryptonian was not on the surface of the earth. This Kryptonian was not basking in solar radiation. When I read my comic books, I have at least 50 years experience of comic books, especially with Superman, he's a Kryptonian. I know from his origin, when he was remade in the 1980s again, definitely when he was remade again, he spent decades on the planet Earth. And in those decades, his cells, his DNA, whatever you want to call it, was gradually absorbing the solar energy, the radiation from the sun. That's why in the in this Man of Steel movie, that's why he seemed like he could have the upper hand slightly against other Kryptonians. He was on Earth decades. The other Kryptonians was on Earth for a couple days or weeks. So he could do things that they couldn't do. His senses was more. You saw the movie. He can control his senses more than them. All because he was on this planet for millions of years, so his body became toughened and hardened to different things. So because the Kryptonian in his movie, she was killed by a projectile. It was a Kryptonian projectile. It was Kryptonian origin, but it led to her demise. I think if it was Superman, because we saw in those Superman movies, Man of Steel movies, even since he was on Earth so long, his body became even invulnerable to Kryptonian artifacts. Remember, he was taking Kryptonian blasts from that world engine machine. He was taking blasts from the ships, etc. So I understand why the Kryptonian in this Flash movie was killed, because she spent decades deprived of the nourishing nature of the sun, while Kal-El was basically raised here as an infant, and his body had decades to absorb solar energy and become hard and tougher than most Kryptonians were. Because we saw in the Kryptonian, I remember in a Man of Steel movie, when I guess her name Fedora, whatever that lady name, she was shot. Missiles was able to knock her out unconscious. But for Kal-El, no earthly missile, not even Kryptonian weapons, could knock him out. So that's why he won against Zod. Remember, his body was so tough, he was able to snap the neck of other Kryptonians. I don't know if the other Kryptonians could have snapped his neck. I don't know if they had the strength to do him, because his body was so bombarded by solar energy, so he was more stronger than them, or more tougher. So those are my 2 points on the movie. One, that timeline shift over just a regular person who was saved, it was like a massive ripple effect throughout time. Would time really do that, or would it just affect that one person's timeline, and the person who all they knew? To me, that's how time works. One thing, one change is not going to save the life of President Lincoln. If somebody saved a person in my family, that's not an insignificant incident in time. So Ronald Reagan still would have got shot in the 80s. You get my point? The Pope still would have got shot. Time likes to follow its path, unless you decide to break it up. But other than that, it's going to follow that path. Thank you for stopping by to hear my little excerpts about the Flash movie. I hope y'all gave some insight into the movie. And before I go out, I better say, by the way, out of all the other superhero movies that's been out, I think I enjoyed this the most. Because I was talking to my wife, the thing I enjoyed about this Flash movie, it was serious, but it had lighthearted events at the same time. Those are the type of movies that most of us like to go to, where it can make you laugh, but it's serious at the same time. It wasn't like no comedy. It was a combination of a drama and a comedy, because it wasn't too serious, and it wasn't telling jokes all the time. But the jokes are the jokes where the people made when they not they was not trying to tell a joke. It was like that. They were serious in the movie, but we laughed looking at them. All right, thank you for stopping by. Give me your intake on the Flash movie. What you think of it? Until the next time, peace.